afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today for this knowledge sharing session on Afreximbank's products and services, brought to you by Afreximbank and the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. My name is Adeze Anyoku. I'm with the Communication and Events Department here at Afreximbank, and I will be your moderator for today. Now, I would like to welcome the President of Afreximbank, President Orama, our Executive Vice Presidents, MD, our Director of Trade Finance, members of staff. I'd also like to welcome the President of the LCCI, the Honorary Treasurer who is here with us today, members of the LCCI, and of course, other guests who also were able to join in. Thank you all for being with us. We've all adapted to this new environment we find ourselves in with COVID. I'm sure pre-COVID, most people were very technologically challenged, but we all find ourselves very savvy with platforms like Zoom, WebEx, Microsoft Teams, and other similar platforms. But to that end, I just hope everybody is well, you and your families, in the midst of this pandemic. And like everything else, it will come to an end, and we'll all get through this. So before I go into our program for today, I want to go through just a few housekeeping items. Firstly, if you've logged on a mobile device, I'd like to implore you to please switch to a computer or a laptop, because we're going to have presentations and a couple of videos or a video. You'll have a much better experience if you're using a PC. Secondly, for those of you who are not familiar with this platform, it is very user-friendly. Your screen has 4 windows in front of you. Each one of those windows is minimizable. You can minimize, resize, or maximize. So just take a second to set that to whatever works best for you, so you have a more enjoyable and engaging experience. Thirdly, there's a Q&A box on the bottom portion of your screen. Please feel free to post any questions you have at any point during the event today. We'll have a Q&A session after the presentations where we'll get to answer them. It is a pretty tight hour, so we'll try to get to as many questions as we can, but if we're not able to answer all of them, we'll collate them all, have them answered, and will be sent to you after the event is done. Lastly, there'll be a quick survey after the event is over. Once you close your browser, the survey will pop up. Feel free to fill that out. It'll just take you a minute, so we can also, of course, continue to improve these sessions we bring to you. So we're going to start the event today with some opening remarks. On our program, very quickly, we'll have opening remarks by both Afreximbank and the LCCI. We'll also have a couple of presentations brought to you by members of staff here at Afreximbank on the AFCFTA, the Pandemic Trade Impact Mitigation Facility, our Trade Information Services. Like I mentioned, we'll have a Q&A session, and then we'll have a brief presentation on the Intra-Africa Trade Fair, which is taking place next year, 2021, in September in Kigali, Rwanda. And then we'll call it a day. So let's start very quickly with the first speaker for today. We have with us the Director and Global Head of Trade Finance here at Afreximbank. She has over 21 years of experience. She heads the trade finance business here at the bank, with her expertise cutting across various areas: receivable financing, structured trade and commodity financing, as well as pre-export and prepayment financing. A chartered accountant by trade, she's also one of the most pleasant people that you will ever meet. If you could please help me welcome Ms. Gwen Mwaba. Gwen, if you can hear me, the floor is all yours. And you may have to unmute yourself if you are on mute right now.
Good afternoon, Des. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. Distinguished members of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, colleagues from Afreximbank, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to you all, and welcome to the first virtual meeting for the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, LCCI. It is my pleasure to open today's session that aims to introduce a selection of products and services that have been specifically designed to support African businesses. As a Pan-African multilateral trade finance institution with a mandate to promote and finance intra and extra-African trade, Afreximbank is committed to championing the promotion and expansion of trade and investment on the continent. Indeed, the bank offers a range of products and services particularly designed to cater to the unique needs and contexts of our diverse stakeholder base. Unfortunately, time limitations for this session will not allow us for an exhaustive overview of all of the bank's products. However, My colleagues will talk to you today about a selection of products and services and facilities that we believe are of particular relevance to LCCI members. We will begin discussing the opportunities and likely benefits that will accrue with the now ratified Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, AFCFTA. The AFCFTA brings together 55 African countries with a combined population of more than 1.2 billion people and a combined gross domestic product, or GDP, exceeding $2.5 trillion. The agreement will make the continent the largest free trade area created since the formation of the World Trade Organization, the WTO. The AFCFTA is an important step towards rationalizing Africa's regional trade arrangements to deepen economic integration and draw on economies of scale and the development of regional value chains. It will contribute significantly towards integrating the continent and removing the last vestiges of colonial divisions. Intra-African trade under the AFCFTA is expected to increase by about 52% by the year 2022, and more than double within the first decade of its implementation. The exuberance around the implementation of the AFCFTA has been tempered somewhat by the new normal of our current turbulent COVID-19 reality. I am sure we all agree, and indeed by mere virtue of the fact that this session is being delivered to you virtually, that we are in the midst of incredibly uncertain times. The devastating impact of the COVID-19 pandemic continues to reverberate across all factions of the global economy, causing widespread economic destruction, curtailed personal freedoms, mortality losses, increased unemployment, and rising poverty. Afreximbank has a history of providing support to African economies in times of economic crisis, and the current circumstances are no different. In March of this year, the bank announced a $3 billion facility named the Pandemic Trade Impact Mitigation Facility, or PATINFA, which provides financing to assist member countries to adjust in an orderly manner to the financial, economic, and health services shocks caused by the pandemic. As companies the world over continue to contemplate recovery strategies, aggressively adapting and developing new ways of operating, turning the painful lessons of the last few months into business and operating models of the future, our Trade Information Unit stands ready to help companies navigate these uncharted waters through the crisis and beyond. The unit provides strategic market intelligence and decision support to clients seeking to understand apologies for that, to clients seeking to understand how to operate in and enter or expand existing capabilities in Africa through a range of integrated intelligence solutions. Recognizing that digital trade technologies and automation have the will continue to play an important role in post-COVID-19 future, the bank is at the forefront of developing technology-centric solutions to promote trade, investment in Africa, and to connect African entities outside the continent. A central component of the unit's offering is thus centered around a commercially oriented trade information portal, which we also call the TIP, one that is part of an emerging digital ecosystem called the African Trade Gateway, which comprises 6 different solutions that will be merged into a common platform. These digital assets include the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, or PAPS, the Africa Customer Due Diligence Repository Platform, also known as the MANSA platform, the Trade Regulatory Platform, the Customer Online Banking Application, in addition to the Trade Information Portal as mentioned earlier. The bank has also pioneered the establishment of the Intra-African Trade Fair, IATF, the largest and most important trade-focused event in Africa. The first edition of IATF in 2018 attracted over 2,500 conference delegates and over 1,000 exhibitors from 45 countries, resulting in over $32 billion worth of trade and investment deals. The trade fair is now a biennial event. The second edition will take place in Kigali, Rwanda, during the period 6 to 12 September 2021. We look forward to working with LCCI members to participate effectively in the trade fair to identify business and investment and trading opportunities in other African countries. The bank also launched the virtual trade fair, which we also call the VTF, in 2018, which not only mimics the physical trade fair during the IATF, but also allows those that may not be able to participate in the physical trade fair to do so virtually. The VTF also allows buyers and sellers to take virtual booths and exhibit their goods and services throughout the year. In this context, I encourage LCCI members to take virtual booths to exhibit their goods and services. As you can see, this meeting is actually taking place in the VTF platform, and I encourage you to take some time after the end of this meeting to familiarize yourself with the VTF. Ladies and gentlemen, before I hand over to my colleagues to take us through today's session, I would like to conclude with a definition on resilience by American writer Andrew Zolli, who defines the concept as follows: the capacity of a system, enterprise, or person to maintain its core purpose and integrity in the face of dramatically changed circumstances. Without question, the operating environment for all of us has dramatically and irrevocably changed. The long path to recovery will not be linear, especially for those companies across multiple geographies and with globally oriented supply chains. All of us will do well to plan for a more disruptive future. The bank stands in our commitment to supporting intra-African trade and investment, and in so doing, we are ready to support LCCI members, as well as other private sector stakeholders, to ensure that there are adequate resources, both financial and non-financial, in place to not only adapt to a world of continued turbulence, but indeed to enable us to all thrive in it. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your attention, and I do wish you a very, very good rest of the day and enjoy the sessions ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Gwen, for those words. These really are uncertain times. So thank you for reiterating the bank's commitment to both the continent and to supporting intra-Africa trade, which is the arrowhead, actually, of the bank's strategic plans. But also for highlighting various ways that we can support the LCCI and its members. So just to segue to our next speaker, who is from LCCI, we have the honor of welcoming the Honorary Treasurer of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. He is also a chartered accountant and also the Chairman of Lead Asset Management. Actually, he's the chairman of quite a few companies, and I'm pretty sure I'm not going to do him justice with this brief introduction here. But we are really honored to have the Honorary Treasurer of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce, who is also the Honorary Treasurer of the Nigerian British Chamber of Commerce. It's my pleasure to welcome Mr. Abimbola Olasore. Mr. Olasore, if you can hear me, the floor is all yours, sir.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon. The President and Executives of the African Export Bank, and in particular, the Managing Director of the Intra-Africa Trade Initiative, presenters and moderators, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I bring you the compliments of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. I am delighted to welcome participants to this information sharing session, which will give more insights into the funding opportunities in the Africa Export-Import Bank. I would like to commend Afrexim for this initiative of organizing this knowledge sharing session with our members. We are operating in an economy where funding is a major impediment to private sector development. We are grappling with the challenge of high cost of funds, as well as paucity of long-term funds. Only recently, access to foreign exchange become an added challenge for businesses here in Nigeria. This session is therefore very timely and very useful for the provision of needed information on trade and investment finance facilities. As businesses strive to survive the raging effects of the COVID-19 pandemic across the continent, it is expected that institutions like Afreximbank, Africa's foremost multilateral trade finance institution, launch initiatives to support African businesses. We are happy to know that the bank is making good moves in that direction. I am optimistic that the outcome of this interaction will greatly enrich our understanding of the deliverables of Afreximbank and the strategies for facilities. Once again, I welcome all participants and the Afreximbank team to this important information session. I wish you all fruitful deliberations. I thank you all for your kind attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Olashere, for those words, opening remarks as well from you. And thank you for being with us at such short notice. I know your schedule is very, very busy, both yours and the Director of Trade Finance at Afreximbank. So we thank you both for being here to open this event for us. We do understand if you have to leave, but if you don't, do kindly stay with us through the rest of the event today. Thank you once again. So we're going to go on to our presentations. We'll start with a presentation on the AFCFTA. The African Union made a decision to establish the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement to create a single continental market for goods and services with free movement of business people and investment. The AFCFTA will certainly transform and impact Africa on a major scale. This agreement was heavily championed actually by Afreximbank. And to tell us a little more about the AFCFTA agreement and the facility that the bank offers, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Gainmore Zanamwe. He's a senior manager here at Afreximbank with the Inter-Africa Trade Initiative and responsible for trade facilitation. Gainmore, the floor is all yours. Please unmute yourself and you can begin your presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I will now kick it off, focusing on the CFTA. I'll give a brief introduction and then go into each of the key interventions that we have to support the CFTA. And the presentation will start by highlighting some of the key challenges that we have that are affecting intra-African trade. The first one is the lack of access to trade and market information. And for example, some players in Lagos may not be fully aware that there are export opportunities here in Egypt, and there could be other export opportunities in South Africa or other African countries. So the bank will provide trade and market information to facilitate trade. The other challenge that you are also familiar with is the weak industrial and manufacturing base for the continent and the over-dependence on commodities. There is also the issue of trade-enabling infrastructure, which is very poor. There is the issue of trade facilitation infrastructure, especially the customs and logistics issues. Then, of course, there are payment and settlement challenges. There is the trade finance issue, historical trade patterns whereby there's a preference to trade with our former colonial masters rather than trading amongst ourselves. And of course, another challenge is the high level of informal intra-African trade, which is about 40%. And the intra-African trade is also affected by lack of quality infrastructure and a number of standards that are not harmonized. And we also have challenges in terms of slow implementation of the CFTA. So the AFCFTA basically tries to address a number of these challenges, and it will actually contribute towards increase in intra-African trade from the current levels of about 16%, and it will also boost industrialization. The CFTA will basically create a large market, as we have heard from Gwen, of about 1.2 billion people, and the population will actually increase to about 2.5 billion by 2050. So the African continent will be a major player on the global arena as well. And even in terms of GDP, it will actually rank number 8 in the world. And this will actually lead to an increase of intra-African trade by 52% by 2022. And it will also remove all tariffs and non-tariff barriers, and that will actually boost the GDP of the continent. We actually know that there is the COVID, which has delayed the trading under the CFTA, but we hope that the negotiations on outstanding matters will be finalized soon, and the trading will commence by 1 January 2021. So quickly now, moving on to the Africa we want. This is the situation we had before, and under the current situation, we actually have a spaghetti ball of regional economic trade blocks, and this is actually not an ideal situation for us to trade with each other. We actually need to move to the future that we want, whereby we'll be having a single market that will facilitate intra-African trade. So the CFTA creates enormous opportunities. If you look at the agricultural sector, we are looking at more than 35 billion. And in terms of the manufactured products, there is an opportunity of more than $1 trillion US. And the CFTA basically facilitates trade in goods, trade in services, and we are currently negotiating. There are outstanding issues that are being negotiated on rules of origin, but the work is almost 95% complete. And we also have got other issues that will be included in the CFTA investment, which is very important because the bank has also interventions to support intra-African investment, as well as competition and intellectual property, which is also key in terms of facilitating and boosting industrialization. So I will highlight a key trade facilitation interventions. Some of them will be covered, like the Intra-African Trade Fair and the African Trade Gateway, but I'll just focus on a few that I think will be relevant to the Lagos Chambers of Commerce and Industry. And the first one is the adjustment facility. As you probably may be aware, Afreximbank launched its own adjustment facility last year, and based on that, we've been working with the African Union. We were basically mandated by the African heads, by the AU heads of states, to actually work with the trade ministers and finance ministers to now develop a broader adjustment facility, which will be anchored by statutes and also a resource mobilization plan to mobilize resources from other partners. So in addition to the commitment of 1 billion that Afreximbank has put on the table, we are now working with the AU to mobilize additional resources for adjustment. And the bank has basically kicked off this work, and we look forward to working with all the players from the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry to access the facility, which basically comprises of two windows. There's the public sector facility, which basically supports the government to address fiscal losses, which are estimated at around 4 billion. This is the tariff revenue loss that the countries may actually incur when they liberalize trade under the AfCFTA. And we will also support other sectors that may be identified by the government that may be considered to be of a strategic nature. Then most importantly, and this is very relevant to the LCCI, the private sector facility. It will support companies negatively affected by the CFTA or those that may want to prepare and gear up for the CFTA to ensure that you develop competitiveness, you upgrade your productive capacity, or even diversify your production lines to take advantage of the CFTA. You may even want to enter into regional value chains, collaborate with other African countries. So the facility will provide support to enable you to do all those things. And this is basically the organogram of the adjustment facility, as I highlighted, and I will not spend much time on this. So another important initiative that we have, which is very important in terms of facilitating trade under the CFTA, is the Transit Guarantee Scheme. What we have right now is that there is only one transit guarantee scheme that is functional, which is the COMESA Transit Guarantee Scheme. ECOWAS is the interstate transit guarantee scheme, but it's not fully functional. So what we have basically done is to come up with a continental transit scheme that will interface with the regional schemes. So we have already completed negotiations with COMESA, and we will start supporting them in terms of issuing single transit bonds that will enable the traders to move their goods throughout the COMESA region without stopping at each and every border. We have also engaged ECOWAS, and we are also going to provide the same solution. We are also working with the AU to ensure that this basically becomes a truly continental transit bond that will facilitate the movement of goods under the CFTA. The transit basically operates in two ways. So there's the direct bond that we can issue to large companies or large entities like ETG Group, like Dangote, and so forth. We can also issue the transit bonds to smaller entities through local financial intermediaries. This is what we call the indirect transit guarantee. So these are some of the things that we're actually doing, and we believe that this transit bond will actually save a lot of money for truckers, for traders, and for consumers. The other scheme that we are implementing is the Export Trading Companies Initiative. This ETC initiative is very important in the sense that it can actually provide support to SMEs, to the informal cross-border traders, and even to large corporates that may be producing or manufacturing their goods, but they don't have the market intelligence in terms of where within the African continent can they actually export their products to. So some of the members from LCCI that may be producing goods or services may not be in a position to know where are the best markets within the continent to actually export their goods. So the Export Trading Company Initiative will then come in and provide that support, take those products to the market. And it will also aggregate products that may be produced by smallholder farmers who don't have the capacity to take the products to the market, as well as SMEs. So we know that the export trading companies played a vital role in terms of facilitating export and industrialization in Asia. And some of the companies that actually started as export trading companies include Mitsui, Mitsubishi, Toyota, and so forth. So we believe that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can actually learn from our colleagues in Asia and come up with specific facilitation and financing instruments that will support the emergence and expansion of export trading companies within the continent. And these will now become the key vehicles that will take goods from various players to the market. And this will play a vital role in terms of facilitating trade under the CFTA. We are already working on developing a model regulatory framework to facilitate the establishment of export trading companies across the continent. And this is basically part of our export trading companies strategy, which basically provides a range of financing and facilitation services. So we believe that the ETC will actually play a vital role in terms of supporting the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and we look forward to working with you on this important initiative. We even welcome some of the members that may be having ideas in terms of actually starting an African-owned ETC to operate from Nigeria to actually export to other African countries and also to import products from other African countries, we can actually work with you, support you to establish these export trading companies. Another initiative that I want to briefly touch on is the one relating to trade enabling infrastructure. Yes, we know that infrastructure is a challenge within the continent, and we all know the stories about how easy it is to actually import goods from outside the continent rather than importing from your neighbor, partly because of logistical and infrastructure challenges. And we also are mindful of the big gap in terms of infrastructure financing, which is more than 110 billion per year. So we will work with a number of players to ensure that the infrastructure gap is addressed. For your information, we are not only focusing on the hard infrastructure like the roads, railways, we are also looking at soft infrastructure, single windows, one-stop border posts. These are some of the trade enabling infrastructure that we need. We are also working with one of our intra-champs, TeloDB, to support the systematic development of railway network within the continent, as this is very critical in terms of facilitating the movement of goods under the CFTA. We also have got some engagements with other players, and we believe that this initiative will actually support the CFTA. And this is basically what happens if you don't pay attention to infrastructure. If you look at the left side, this is basically the chaos that you have. And on the right side, this is basically an organized transport system. So this is what we're actually trying to promote. Another initiative that we have is the Africa Quality Centers. So the Africa Quality Assurance Centers, they basically assist the players within the continent to comply with export standards within the continent or abroad. As you probably may be aware, a lot of our goods are being rejected, whether it's in Europe, whether it's in America. They are basically being rejected because they don't meet standards in those countries. So as the bank, we have basically decided to support the establishment of Africa Quality Assurance Centers across Africa, and we've got a pilot in Nigeria, Ogun State, and we will also establish other centers in other states in Nigeria and other African countries to ensure that there is capacity for testing, inspection, and certification to assure the consumers, to assure the market that the products that have been produced by the members of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, they meet the requirements of the market, of the consumers. They are safe to eat or consume or use. So that's basically what the ACACs will do. And we believe that this will play a vital role in terms of facilitating trade under the CFTA. We also have been working with the African Union as well as the African Standardization Organization to actually develop the Africa Quality Policy, which will support the establishment of quality infrastructure within the continent and promote the harmonization of standards. We also have been working with ASO in terms of harmonization of standards in the automotive sector. I believe that there is a good opportunity to actually improve the automotive sector. I'll speak about this later on. And we are also now partnering with the ITFC to harmonize standards in the pharmaceutical sector. This will also respond to the COVID challenges. We will be able to actually come up with standards that will support the production of a number of pharmaceutical and medical products. So this initiative will actually contribute towards the removing of non-tariff barriers, especially in the area of standards that normally affect the movement of goods within the continent. Tariffs, yes, they are a challenge, but the bigger problem we are facing within the continent is basically the non-tariff barriers in the form of standards and technical regulations. The other initiative that I want to talk about is the automotive industry. As you probably may be aware, within the continent, the major players are basically Morocco and South Africa. These are the key players in the automotive industry. And the others are basically having various challenges. But even if you look at Morocco and South Africa, they are too much dependent on exporting their products. There's very little trade in the automotive industry that is taking place within the continent. So we need to learn from our colleagues again in Asia, where they established the ASEAN FTA, which played a vital role in terms of catalyzing the automotive industry. And Malaysia actually focused on producing certain categories of cars, passenger cars. Indonesia focused on manufacturing SUVs and some of the big trucks. And that was basically a distribution of production networks. Thailand was focusing on pickup trucks, and Vietnam was also doing motorcycles. So if we do regional value chains, if we actually can come to some form of understanding the governments and industry players, we can actually develop regional value chains in the automotive industry, and this will actually facilitate trade under the CFTA. And this is basically what we are doing, working with the African Association of Automotive Industry, and we have basically developed a draft Pan-African Auto Pact, which will actually support the regional value chain approach that I was actually talking about, to ensure that at the end of the day, we will all benefit from the CFTA. The challenges that are affecting trade within the automotive industry are many, but the key one that I want to highlight is the importation of second-hand vehicles. If we don't do something to address the importation of second-hand vehicles from outside the continent, we should just forget about establishing a viable automotive industry. So there are a number of initiatives that we are looking at, working with the AU and the Association of Automotive Industry to address this challenge. We will also need to ensure that we have cheap automotive finance, and we will need to do this as a value chain network. We have developed a strategy on the automotive industry, which focuses on development of regional value chains, providing affordable auto financing, and addressing the policy challenges. So these are some of the things that we are doing in the automotive industry. The other initiative is basically the informal cross-border trade, which is a key challenge. And we are basically working with UNECA. We've just completed a study to try and estimate and understand the quantum of informal cross-border trade. And we are now putting a number of facilitation and financing interventions to formalize the trade and to provide support to the various players working with a number of entities. The bank is also working with ITC to undertake training on how to export within the continent. And we will also be working with the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry to actually
It looks like we may have lost Gainmore. Gainmore, can you hear me? Okay, it looks like we may have lost him temporarily. We'll see if we can get him back. But in the interim, I mean, he has touched on quite a few things, shedding light on the AFCFTA, ways that, of course, it can help transform the landscape in Africa, the private sector facility, which he mentioned, that will support the LCCI, and how the bank is also working to mobilize additional resources, as we have a lot of work left to do on the continent in operationalizing the AFCFTA. So thank you, Gainmore, but we'll try to see if we can get him back. In the interim, we can move on to our next speaker. And that would be Mr. Peter Oluwanoni. So we are in the middle of a pandemic right now, of course, as we all know, certainly unprecedented times. I know I have to schedule Zoom calls for my 77-year-old parents right now, so I know that times have definitely changed. But on the business side, there are a lot of businesses who are suffering. Many countries have been more hardly hit than others. And so a couple of months ago, the bank launched a pandemic and trade impact mitigation facility to help soften, of course, the impact of COVID-19. So to tell us a little bit more about the PATIMFA facility is our head of client relations for the Anglophone West Africa here at Afreximbank as well. He's based in the Abuja office and responsible for executing the business development plans encompassing trade, finance, intra-Africa trade, project finance, export development deals, etc. So Mr. Peter Oluwanoni, if you can hear me, Peter, you can have the floor now, sir.
Very much, Daisy, and hope you can hear me well. And
yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Just as Adeze have said, what we have seen is that there has been a significant impact of trade in Africa. Sorry, Adeze, I can't see my slides just yet. Adeze, can you?
Yes, I can hear you. On the live view, just ensure your live view is up.
Right. Okay, so saying that, as we all know, there has been a significant impact of trade in Africa based due to the pandemic, which has affected, disrupted global supply chains. It's disrupted financing. We have seen lines, trade finance lines to African corporates, African finance institutions being cut and being reduced. The typical traditional European and Western banks who provide lines of credit to Africa and Africa businesses have the immediate impact of the pandemic has been that they have pulled back those lines. So just to go quickly through the my presentation today. Sorry, I just wanted to know, I can't see my slides yet.
Okay, we can control the slides for you if you have the presentation in front of you. But if you have your live view open at the bottom, click on live view. You should see the presentation slides on your screen.
Just a second, please. Right. Okay. Thank you. I'm here now. So, so as I just said, so the COVID-19 is definitely a frightening wake-up call for the world. Just as I've mentioned, it has disrupted global supply chains. It's affected lines of credit, financing, and the amount of liquidity that is flowing into the continent to support African-owned businesses. And of no doubt, this is the time for banks to step up to ensure that they are able to devise creative financing methods to be more flexible in terms of structuring transactions and credits to ensure that the critical engines of the economy and the real sector continues to move to ensure minimal impact to the world. Definitely, as from what we have seen already on the continent, the forecast for the GDP have been slashed by the IMF and the World Bank and other leading rating agencies who have begun to downgrade African countries. Nigeria and other commodity-based economies have been most hardly hit because with such pandemic and disruption of global chains, where transport and movement was brought almost aground due to lockdowns and measures to control the spread of the virus. What we have seen is that there has been lower consumption for energy, lower consumption of fuels, aviation fuel, petrol, diesel, and all of this has made the prices of commodities to crash, particularly for oil and gas and the metals. And that's why you can see from this slide that economies like Nigeria, Angola, Gabon, and other oil-producing economies have taken a bashing due to the drop in oil and commodity prices. Of course, the sectors that are most hit are the oil and gas, as I've mentioned, industrial metals, commodity exporters who are not able to export their commodities due to the lockdown and due to the reduced demand. The tourism sector, as we know, most hotels have been closed, most resorts, most entertainment arcades have all been closed due to the measures put in place by the World Health Organization to slow down the spread of this virus. Indeed, all of this has led to a disruption in supply chains and domestic production of food, and which is already showing signals of a food security crisis across the continent. The finance and exchange rates have been hit so significantly due to without inflows of foreign exchange. What we're saying is that the countries are having their foreign reserves being depleted, and this is putting significant pressure on their foreign reserves balances and threatening, which is leading to a depreciation in exchange rate. Nigeria has lost almost about 20 to 30% of its reserves, and even a depreciation in the exchange rate, which just as at March, it was trading at the naira was trading to the dollar, even at the parallel market at about 360 to a dollar. And today we're seeing rates as high as 490 and 500 naira, which indeed has really is affecting the real sector and producers, and I'm sure very key members of the Lagos State Chamber of Commerce and Industry who are import dependent, who need FX liquidity to continue to keep their business going. In response, the Afreximbank, the board of the bank, came up with a facility called the Pandemic Trade Impact Mitigation Facility, and Afreximbank. This is not the first time. In 2016, when we had the global crash in commodities, the bank came up with another unique financing solution, which was able to help economies mitigate to a great extent the impact of the crash in commodity prices. And it's on this basis that the bank also decided to come up with another facility, which is to help shock the impact, reduce how will I put it now, to reduce the depreciating effects that COVID is bringing to the economies of the African countries. So basically, the objectives of the PATIMFA facility is to help these countries, the governments, the ministries of finance, finance institutions, central banks meet trade debt obligations so that they do not have negative ratings from their financiers, and to help them support their foreign reserves to at least ensure that there is confidence in the economy of the ability of the central banks to meet maturing obligations, and also to ensure that foreign direct investment continues to flow into these economies where if the confidence is maintained. Indeed, another objective of the PATIMFA is to also help in ensuring that countries are able to match the timing of their expected export revenues with current obligations. So, because we have noticed that there has been, due to disruption in the global supply chains, and also we've also seen where the OPEC and the OPEC Plus have had to cut production of quotas of crude productions from oil producing states to ensure that the prices are a bit propped up, to ensure and give value to the crude exporters. So these are the key objectives of the PATIMFA and what it seeks to do. And also it also seeks to provide emergency trade finance facilities to import medicine, equipment, and other critical raw materials required by companies operating in the medical and in the pharma space to ensure that at least they're able to provide medicines that are required to fight this pandemic that has hit us all hard, has even put some of the major world powers on their knees. Maybe I thought to touch on the last point, which is for the eligible corporates who have whose supply chains have been disrupted, so that they can have liquidity to match and ensure that their production continues to go on, and they're able to keep their companies afloat. The slide just basically speaks to the requirements for to benefit for PATIMFA. Of course, because the PATIMFA is capped at a total of $3 billion, of course, the bank is able to do that to increase that limit based on creative and ability to sell down and have some capital mitigation strategies, which is enabling the bank to book more than the $3 billion. But indeed, noting that it is really an emergency facility, the bank has very critical, specific criteria to enable companies access. So basically, the companies must be able to prove to us that there has been a drop in their revenues, which has been necessitated by the pandemic and the impact of COVID-19. So this slide, basically, that's just what it speaks to. As I've said, eligible beneficiaries are governments, central banks, commercial banks, and corporates whose operations, corporates in the real sector, who are manufacturing, who are producing, and whose either maybe their cash flows, they're now having challenges in timing of cash flows, they're having challenges in sourcing raw material. So we're able to provide, the PATIMFA is able to bridge this gap. Eligible transactions, the bank is able to provide direct cash advances, just as I've said, booking direct loans, term loans. We're able to provide letters and lines of credit, confirmation, and refinancing. The Afreximbank is now very strongly pursuing its objective under the LC confirmation and refinancing, because what we have seen is our traditional partner institutions who have always partnered with the continent, like typical Western and European banks, have all cut their lines, have all reduced their lines just in the bid to protect themselves. And now what the impact of that is that we have many African finance institutions who are now cash strapped from FX. They have a paucity of FX liquidity and even of this LC confirmation lines. So Afreximbank is channeling a lot of effort. We are approving new lines. I think as at June, we had onboarded more than 300 banks and approved more than 100 million. We have onboarded 300 banks and approved lines for more than 100 African banks, and we have seen significant utilization under these lines because clearly we're seeing that the Western banks have pulled out of the continent, and where they have not pulled out completely, they have slashed and they have become extremely risk averse. And so Afreximbank is taking on this big role of filling this gap as much as it can. Of course, we have our limitations, but we're using the PATIMFA and other instruments of financing to cover this gap as much as possible. The PATIMFA is available in US dollars, in the euro, and the Chinese yuan, and in the main African local currencies, where we're able to provide very strategic. Afreximbank does not typically hold local currency accounts, but we're able to work with local partners whom we refer to as trade finance intermediaries to ensure that on the back of Afreximbank's structures, they're able to provide local currency facilities. Just to go further into the structure, the sources of repayment, of course, are identified receivables. So we have to be able to have a line of sight when we provide the financing. We're able to create security over the receivables, either be it mining royalties, oil and gas export proceeds, identified or copper, gold, cocoa, coffee, tobacco, whatever it is that is the underlying receivables. And then we have cash collateral accounts and also assignment of liquid and assets such as treasury bills, bonds, listed shares, which are able to provide security and comfort to the bank under the structures. In terms of collateral, the bank will accept foreign currency deposits where we're able to cash back the facility and avail a facility against cash, local, as I've mentioned, local and foreign currency treasury bills, liquid assets such as listed bonds on key stock market exchanges where they can be liquidated, export receivables, future flows from the services to be offered. We have all of these. We are able to take any of these as collateral in providing financing. In terms of pricing, Afreximbank's pricing is very competitive. We're able to because as of today, we're providing financing to the local Nigerian banks, who in turn lend these facilities to the economy and to, I'm sure, to members of the LCCI. But indeed, our facilities, even for direct advances, are very competitive, and we give them to reflect the current market situation, and also to ensure that we ameliorate the impact of COVID on this customers' businesses by reducing the cost as much as we can. In terms of availability period, this was approved by our board to expire in terms of availability by the 21st of March 2022. But the tenors of transactions are in the first instance for 3 years, unless where we extend them, maybe where we see that there is a basis to extend. But of course, the justification has to be made, but the typical pattern for transactions are for 3 years. Going to my 14th slide. For funded transactions, the bank is able to disburse as bullet, revolving, or through simple or multiple utilizations, depending. So basically, the disbursement will be tied to the customer's transaction cycle and to the requirements, the uses of funds based on the production and transaction cycle of the client. Amounts repaid can be withdrawn to the extent that it lapses during the availability period. Finally, in terms of the state of play, because of the massive requirements, Afreximbank today has disbursed about $3.55 billion to the Egyptian banks under very creative structures, which I have mentioned earlier. We've approved about $750 million for Nigerian banks. We have another $250 million and even a little more than that, which we're currently considering across different levels of our value chain. And for facilities that we have immediately disbursed, we have disbursed participants in favor of Nigerian airlines who have been hit, also Ghanaian cocoa processors who require the cocoa for whose supply chains have been disrupted and are suffering from timing issues. So basically, in terms of how do you apply for the facility, I am the local rep here in Abuja, but the email shown on the screen is that of our global head for client relations. So all applications can be addressed to the president via this email and been copied to me, and we will take them on, we'll review them, and we set up meetings to basically review the transaction, check for bankability, come up with structures that will be mutually beneficial to both parties. But in essence, colleagues from the LCCI, this is the presentation on the Pandemic Trade Impact Mitigation Facility, which, as we have said, is our own way as the African Export-Import Bank in ameliorating the impact of COVID on the disruptions that your businesses have suffered, the impact of the depreciating FX situation, and the paucity of FX liquidity in the market, to ensure that at least we are able to keep African economies alive, keep Nigerian corporates and Nigerian real sector players in the LCCI alive, and to ensure that by the end of this COVID, you could be able to say that indeed Afreximbank was a worthy partner who has stood up to its mandate to support you during these difficult times. At this point, I will pass back to the moderator, who will coordinate the question and answer session. I think, thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Peter. We do have a few questions that have come through, but I'll hold off on the questions just for a short while longer. So we'll go through the next brief presentation and then we'll come back to the Q&As. But please do keep posting your questions on there. We'll try to get to as many as we can. Thanks again, Peter. The next presentation is going to be from our Head of Trade Information Services, She is passionate about economic transformation of African countries and a trade economist by trade. I'd like to call her my South African sister because that's what she is. I'd like to welcome Ms. Lizanne Case. Liz, if you can hear me, the floor is yours now, please. You'd have to unmute yourself.
I have unmuted myself.
Okay, please go ahead.
Thank you, Ades. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I will take you through a brief presentation on the offering of trade information. You would have heard my colleague Gainmore mention that one of the biggest barriers to increasing intra-African trade is indeed the lack of information, where people in one African country are not aware of the opportunities offered in other African countries. And it is for this reason that the bank has established the Trade Information Unit to work directly with our clients to help access opportunities across the continent. So with that said, the bank leverages our core skills, which are our knowledge, our expertise, and our connections, to provide cutting-edge trade opportunity intelligence directly to our clients. We really believe in developing integrated trade intelligence solutions in that we understand that insight opens markets and really drives trade. In terms of the business model for trade information, we offer two business models. One is a trade information portal that we are currently in development, and I will speak about later. In the portal, we really are trying to present a detailed picture of African trade and investment opportunities by company, sector, market, prices, and trade flows. The bank is really taking a big data approach to solving the challenge of the lack of information in the continent. We will also disseminate various standardized products such as sector studies, market briefs, risk analysis, currency outlooks, policy outlooks, etc., through this platform. It will also have a B2B element where businesses from across Africa can connect and engage with each other. But as I said, more on that later. The second aspect of our business model is around a consultancy service. So we offer direct support to clients through a host of products to help access African markets that are notoriously opaque, or to indeed expand operations across the continent. We also work, we have the dual mandate also to support African entities that are looking for opportunities outside of the continent. Again, in terms of the product view, in terms of what we offer, under the consultancy aspects, typically it could range from proprietary data collection and analysis, market research, market entry strategies, market and product strategies, new product development, export capacity and growth analysis, etc., down to, supporting the establishment of foreign businesses, helping to negotiate contracts, and also providing twinning and matchmaking support. In terms of the products, as I mentioned earlier, for the standardized trade and market intelligence solutions, we will present a data tool which will help to uncover details across African countries on companies, sectors, markets, and prices, but also distilling this data into insight through our standardized trade intelligence product suite, including the country briefs, etc. So in terms of our approach, we typically, in terms of the consultancy aspect, we look at developing prioritization frameworks for our clients in terms of how they want to enter African economies. And we develop a partnership model in conjunction with our clients, and we work together to understand both a client's current capability and future capability, and develop a holistic strategy around penetrating these markets. In terms of the trade information portal, we will have four, as I mentioned to you, 4 offerings. We offer a market screening product where it offers the bank's big data tool to uncover opportunities across value chains across African countries. This tool will help identify which African countries are the best markets for their selected products and help uncover, different trade flows as well as those partners across those value chains. Then again, we will distill these data into market insights. And this is our standardized trade information product suite, which includes, as I mentioned before, the country studies, the industry studies, risk reports, etc. We also then would offer our market intelligence, which will showcase the case studies of various different companies that we have and will continue to support. So that and also it will have a lead generation aspect where you can contact us directly through the portal, and we will be there to support any of your trade information needs. Again, another component of this portal is that it will have a marketplace which will enable buyers and sellers from across the continent to connect with each other. Again, this is just more about our product suite that I mentioned to you earlier. I won't go into more detail on that. But in terms of the benefits, we are looking to link businesses to growth opportunities and to identify any of the associated costs and risks. We are using our digital tools and also our consultancy offering to offer really the best advice and solutions for our clients who are in very specific contexts. We will be developing tools that will help businesses develop their capacity to access a more sophisticated deep dive understanding of African supply chains and value chains. And we provide both aggregate and granular data from the macro to the micro firm level across Africa. And this can be used to aid policy, strategy, investment policies, even impact analysis. We are also providing for specific views on companies and sectors, and we are really pioneering some of the most innovative solutions to solving for indeed the lack of information across the continent by using artificial intelligence and predictive learning techniques to help fill and bridge these gaps. In terms of our emerging digital ecosystem, I'm conscious that we are running out of time and I'd like to go into the question and answer series, but I'd begin by saying that Gwen had mentioned that we are developing an African trade gateway. The trade information portal is one of the components of these 6 digital assets that the bank currently has in different stages of development. Some are still being developed, others are live and in the market. And we are working to develop an integrated platform, a digital solution that will help address and respond to our clients' unique pain points. So from the trade information portal, we are looking to help understand intra-African trade using a big data approach to solving for these challenges. We also have a regulatory portal which will work which is also under development and helps to uncover the customs and various different tariff barriers and non-tariff barriers that are available across countries. Our Mansa repository has already been launched, and that is around de-risking African counterparts. Our PAPS, our payments and settlement system, that has been launched as well, and it is really to eliminate the payment risk and also to allow entities to settle in their local currencies. We have a B2B marketplace that will be developed under the Trade Information Portal, and indeed as you would have also seen, we have our virtual trade fair, which is already launched, and we urge you to please go after this session to have a look at that environment, especially in this COVID period where it's with lockdown protocols, etc. The virtual trade fair really offers a fantastic opportunity to help buyers and sellers connect where there are physical limitations on movement and travel. We will also be developing a tool to help unpack and understand and how to really access logistic networks across Africa. The URL is listed at the below for Mensa, which you can go on and log on already. As I mentioned, the regulatory portal and the trade information portal are still under development, but we are hoping to launch both of those products before the end of the year. And our payments and settlement systems already launched. And as I mentioned to you earlier, the virtual trade fair is also up and ready for any importers and exporters to come and access opportunities already. In terms of accessing the trade information services currently, I invite any of you to send an email to trade.information@afreximbank.com, and we will respond to any requests for information accordingly. So thank you for listening. Des, back to you.
Thank you very much, Lizanne, for that overview of trade information as well as the digital platforms that the bank is launching. Of course, we're in 2020 and we're in a digital era, so we're certainly not going to be left behind. All right, so we do have quite a few questions that have come in. As I said, we definitely will try to get to as many as we can. Gainmore is back, and he is here to also answer some questions on the AFCFTA. Apologies that he cut out. Technical issues are par for the course now with this virtual world. To the questions that we have. And the first one actually does go to you, Gainmore. What are the African countries doing to help businesses in deferring or waiving interest on loans? If that's a question you can actually answer. Can you hear me, Gainmore? Gainmore, can you hear me? Looks like we might not have him connected. Okay, we'll come back to him. We will get back to him. All right. The next question is for Peter Ononi. To banks is a good approach, but how do you ensure it impacts the real and agricultural sectors?
Sorry, can you take that again, please?
Peter, you there?
Yes, I can't hear.
Sure.
Hello?
It looks like, hello? Game, can you hear me? Yeah, I think we keep losing Gainmore. Peter, this question is for you. It says money extended to banks is a good approach, but how do we ensure its impact the real agricultural sectors? Or I guess the agricultural sectors.
Yeah, you can hear me, right? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so in structuring the transactions to the banks where we do on lending structures and where we don't do direct lending to the borrowers, we ensure that we have a line of sight on the use of funds. The borrowers, the banks in most instances have to provide us with what we call compliance certificates, where they basically provide proof of use of the use of the funds to us. So depending on the nature of the transaction, there are transactions that have specific uses where we would have, as part of the credit assessment, have collected information as to the use of funds. That way, we're able to track, and as I've said, in the annual or semi-annual review of those transactions, the banks have to provide us with information. We also have what we call the trade development, TDIA, trade development impact assessment, where we have a dedicated department who more or less all they do is to assess the impact of the financing that the bank has availed to ensure that it is meeting the targeted objectives. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Peter. While I still have you there, we have this question from Mr. Sonny Michael, and it says, what exactly are the next steps to start the application for the pandemic mitigation facility?
What we will, as I've said towards the last slide, is to send an application to the bank. The application will be supported by the business case, which we'll refer to as the business plan, noting that the PATIMFA more or less is to mitigate the impact of on your business. So you have to provide us with justification as to the impact of the PATIMFA on your business in specific terms. So you give us the application, your business case, which will contain the justification. You could support it with audited for 3-year audited financials, 2019, 2018, and your current management accounts, and also information around the use of funds and how the loan will be repaid, and the things of that nature. But it's an immediate application, and then we can arrange a call with your team to go more granular as to understanding your further. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Peter. Gaynor, can you confirm if you can hear me? Gaynor? Okay. We seem to have a connection issue. I'd like to extend my apologies to Mr. Ray Bridgewater. He had a question for Mr. Lashere. He had to leave. Have been posed. If we're not able to answer here, then we will get those answered and emailed out to you after the event is over. We have another question for, it seems, Peter, you have quite a few questions for you. I don't know if you have the answer to this question. I'd pose it anyway. He asked a question about the Nigeria electricity infrastructure projects. If you have any information on that. If not, then of course I can move on to the next.
No, I wouldn't have. I think that's a fund held by the Central Bank of Nigeria. It's not been run by Afreximbank.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there financing support for companies that are into telecom services with regards to the pandemic facility?
So as I've said, I think we'll have to take this offline. Basically, it's just to see how has your business been impacted by COVID. If you, for example, you were providing telecom services to critical sectors like the hospitals, but let's take this offline. I think we can go in more granular details to see how COVID has impacted your business, and if we're able to make a case under the PATIMFA, then we'll let you know.
Okay, thank you very much for that. This question is for Lizanne. Lizanne, the question is, are trade information services free? And if not, what are the costs?
Hello, Ades, I can hear, but it's breaking. Let's try one more time.
Okay, we'll get back. We'll pose the question to you in a second. Lizanne, can you answer that question?
Yes, sure. So, in terms of the trade information portal, we are following a freemium pricing model in the beginning. So there will be certain aspects of the portal and the intelligence that will be available for free. But in terms of the consultancy side, those services are not provided free of charge, and our pricing is typically based on the scope of work involved. So again, if there are any projects or any assignments, I would like to remind the audience to kindly contact our trade.information at Afreximbank, and we will engage directly with these clients. As I said, pricing is according to the scope of work involved.
Okay, thank you. I guess this is a follow-up, but you may have touched on this, how to access the Trade Information Services support. So I guess the email address you provided, they can reach out directly to you for that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Gainmore, fingers crossed that you can hear me. How does the private sector access funding under the AFCFTA adjustment facility? Gainmore, are you there? Okay, it seems today's not a very good day technically for us with Gainmores. All right. It is 1:20 and we actually have one more presentation. Let me see if I can get to one or two more questions here. Peter, this one is for you. Can a line of credit be established to support the purchase of telemedicine medical mobile that run on solar energy? And can a partnership with the Lagos Chamber of Commerce be established to purchase a finance a mobile unit?
Thank you, Adeze. I think what I would think will be the immediate next steps should be once that partnership has been finalized with the counterparty, the business case has been developed, because clearly a line of credit can be provided to the extent that the transaction is bankable. We can see how the repayment will occur within the 3 years for the Patimfa, and we see the benefits it's giving to in terms of the healthcare sector, how it's helping to fight COVID and how helping to mitigate or reduce the impact of the pandemic, then definitely we have a transaction.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Peter. For everyone watching, I do apologize. We have just a little bit of time, and I certainly want to make sure that we have the last brief presentation on the Intra-Africa Trade Fair. But I certainly would try, I certainly will make sure that all the questions that were posed, we get them answered. Just please bear with us, and apologies again. We actually have quite a few that came in that we weren't able to get to, but we will certainly have those answered and sent. The on-demand replay for this session will be sent 24 hours after this event, so you'll be able to get the links. We'll also provide the presentations to you that were given today, as well as the contact information. We'll put up the email addresses of the speakers as well that you can contact should you want to get more information about the presentations that they gave. So we're going to run a quick video on the Intra-Africa Trade Fair. The Intra-Africa Trade Fair was launched by Afreximbank, as mentioned in Gwen, her opening remarks. In 2018, the inaugural event was held here in Cairo, which is where the headquarters of Afreximbank is. And of course, this is a forum that brings together buyers and sellers from all over the globe in order to execute trade. So if you could please run that video, Josie, and after that, we'll have the brief presentation on the IATF by Ms. Janice Costa from Reed Exhibitions. Thank you.
Join Africa's largest trade and investment fair in Rwanda. Intra-African Trade Fair gives you access to more than 1,100 exhibitors, 10,000 visitors and buyers, and more than 5,000 conference delegates from more than 55 countries. Participate in trade and investment deals worth $40 billion as business and government come together to explore business and networking opportunities at the International Exhibition. Brought to you by the African Export-Import Bank and their premium partners, the IATF 2021, Transforming Africa.
Thank you very, very much, Janice. Janice Costa, who's going to give a presentation now on the IATF, is the head of sales and sponsorships for the Intra-Africa Trade Fair in guidance with Afreximbank. Janice, if you can hear me, please, the floor is yours.
To you all, and thank you for allowing me to share a short presentation on the Intra-Africa Trade Fair. Afreximbank, in collaboration with the African Union Commission and the government of the Republic of Rwanda, will host the second edition in the Inter-Africa Trade Fair in Kigali, Rwanda from the 6th to the 12th September under the theme Building Bridges for a Successful AFCFTA. Inter-Africa Trade Fair is the key event boosting trade in Africa, and no other event brings together more professionals under one roof. Our theme will focus on the newly launched African Continental Free Trade Area, a single market for goods and services across our 55 African countries, and is really aimed at boosting trade and investment in Africa. The Inter-Africa Trade Fair 2021 will provide a unique, valuable platform for businesses to access an integrated African market of over 1.2 billion people, with a combined GDP of over 2.5 trillion created under the African Continental Free Trade Area. Our objectives are as follows. We want to bring together continental and global players who are seeking business and investment opportunities in Africa. We want to serve as a marketplace where buyers and sellers meet and explore various business opportunities and provide a platform for B2B and B2G networking and development of business opportunities. We also want to share trade and investment and market information to identify solutions while addressing challenges affecting inter-Africa trade. And we're also going to share information about Afreximbank initiatives, trade finance, and trade facilitation interventions. The first edition of Inter-Africa Trade Fair in 2018 attracted well over 2,500 conference delegates and 1,000 exhibitors from over 45 countries, resulting in over 32 billion worth of trade and investment deals that were closed at the event. In 2021, at our second edition, it is expected to be even bigger and aims to attract 5,000 conference delegates and 1,100 exhibitors, including over 1,000 buyers from over 55 countries who will engage to grow trade and investment on the African continent, and more than 40 billion in trade and investment deals are being targeted at our next edition. Our key verticals for IATF 2021 will be an exhibition, a trade and investment forum, virtual trade fair, country days, Creative Africa program, B2B, B2G exchanges, IATF Youth Startup Program, IATF Automotive Program. I'm just going to share with you a bit more on each of our verticals. In our exhibition verticals, we'll be offering exhibitors opportunities to showcase their goods and services, providing a platform for countries and companies to identify credible partners that can facilitate foreign direct investment flows necessary for expanding Africa's productive capacity. The exhibition covers multiple sectors and runs for the full 7-day program with a jam-packed program covering speed networking, matchmaking, hosted buyers, programs, workshops, and many more. Our Trade and Investment Forum will address topical issues relating to trade, finance, payments, trade facilitation, trade enabling infrastructure, harmonization of trade standards, industrialization, regional value chain and investment. There will also be an opportunity for training exporters on how to access the African market. Our Creative Africa program is going to be one of the most dynamic creative programs held in Africa, showcasing our creative economy. It is said that right now the creative sector in Africa is estimated to employ about 2 million people, generating 49 billion in revenue, which represents about 1.1% of the continent's GDP. So over the 7 days, we will be showcasing our creative sector at its finest, including a 2-day Creative Africa Summit, a 7-day exhibition with a dedicated area to the creative sector, masterclasses with the best talent from Africa, fashion shows, and so much more. We've also got our country days where selected countries will have the opportunity to showcase their trade, investment, tourism, and cultural opportunities. We have invited countries in Africa to bid for the Country Day feature. we will have 6 country days showcased at IATF. A new addition to 2021 is the IATF Automotive Show. It is said the African market currently has a very high growth prospect in the automotive industry. So this is one we could not miss. We will have a dedicated area within the exhibition component focused on automotive. This is the automotive's opportunity to showcase what the continent has to offer through various networking opportunities, meetings, and workshops. Another exciting addition to 2021 is one which I'm so personally passionate about, is the IATF Youth Startup Program. We have also a dedicated pavilion for the youth startups in Africa, where they will showcase their goods and services. IATF will provide endless and amazing opportunities for matchmaking with venture capitalists, networking amongst the youth, and other delegates. This will give the youth a chance to have a voice in inter-Africa trade. The virtual trade fair, which enables virtual participation by buyers and sellers in the trade fair as a 24/7 platform, reigniting economies and allowing inter-Africa trade to continue. The virtual trade fair has virtual booths, hosts webinars, and facilitates virtual engagement between buyers and sellers. IATF Virtual is an innovative and cost-effective platform to promote, educate, and sell your products and services to a larger audience of key players. For just a small investment of $2 a day, which works out to $750 for 12 months, the benefits outweigh the cost. IATF brings together exhibitors and visitors from all sectors right to your desk. It provides a year-round platform for attendees and non-attendees alike to connect in real time, a dynamic and convenient way to visit IATF, identify opportunities, source products, network with exhibitors, engage in dialogue, identify solutions and strategies, and to create partnerships and do business. So currently, right now, we're in our virtual trade fair platform in the auditorium. I encourage you at the end of the event to visit the other companies and the other country booths and take a look at the booths. You never know what business you can do right now. Our ITF online, we've also got a merchandise store, and it's an opportunity to purchase the official IATF merchandise, as well as an opportunity for exhibitors to use this platform as a marketplace to sell your products. I also encourage you, the website is there online. If you can just take it down, I encourage you after this just to go to our merch store and see what you can purchase today. IATF is being promoted and communicated through multiple channels across multiple continents. We have a strong campaign that includes ongoing promotions about various components of the event. We use various channels such as digital, out of home, social media, our virtual trade fair platform, and network engagements through live events across the world. I'm sure you are all asking, why should I participate in IATF 2021? The answer is very simple. You will get your brand noticed with a captive audience who will be your next big business opportunity. And you will have access to over 1,000 buyers, 1,100 exhibitors, and 10,000 visitors in one place. And you have access to meet 55 governments and other international governments, qualified global hosts, hosted buyers and investment. Nowhere will you have this opportunity all in one place. What more would you want in terms of a business opportunity? And I know you're also asking how. How can I participate? Also very simple. There are various opportunities for you to take advantage of through IATF 2021. You can immediately sign up for a VTF booth, which will be online for a whole 12 months at the ridiculous rate of only $2 a day, showcasing your company goods and services. Or you can prepare for Kigali by purchasing an exhibition booth to meet all the African governments, investors, buyers, and manufacturers to ensure your products and services trade into Africa. You can also register as a delegate to attend our comprehensive trade and investment conference and the exciting Creative Summit. Or you can register as a visitor and come to Kigali for our exciting 7-day program. Or you can become a sponsor. We offer customized sponsorship opportunities for businesses big and small. Please feel free to contact myself or Chardonnay should you have any more questions. We are more than happy to assist you. Visit our website constantly. We're constantly updating it with up-to-date information. Or stay in touch with one of our social media platforms. Go to our Facebook and like. I really look forward to putting your business on the BTF platform today so you can also benefit from this opportunity. Africa is talking business, and you really need to be part of it. We look forward to seeing you in Kigali in September 2021. And thank you for giving us the time today, and have a good afternoon. Over to you, Ade.
Thank you very much, Janice, for that presentation on the IETF 2021. The original IETF was scheduled for September 2020, but of course it was postponed due to COVID-19. Somebody did ask that question in the Q&A chat, so just wanted to make sure that I answered that. Miss Nelly Casina, somebody will contact you regarding the question that you posed on translation, and we apologize that this session is just in English. Moaz Gandia, the presentation, as you asked, will be sent with the link that goes out after the on-demand replay link will be sent tomorrow. So you should see that, and you can actually listen to the event again. We also will include the presentations in that link. Henry GK, your question about pre-export finance, somebody will contact you from the Trade Finance Department and answer that question that you have regarding that. And Mr. Dan Whiskey, somebody from the Trade Information Services Department would also contact you on the fees and how to access our trade information services. So again, I want to say a very huge thank you to you all for joining us today. We're out of time. I would like to keep going, but unfortunately, we've already been at this for an hour and a half. And I know you all have very busy schedules. We will certainly ensure, like I said, all the questions that have been posed, we will go through due to some technical issues, but rest assured those will be answered. So a huge thank you again to Mr. Bimbo Olashere for joining us today, to our Director of Trade Finance, Gwen Mwaba, for also being here with us, to all the speakers for taking your time to go through all the different presentations with us today. Members, of course, of the LCCI for joining us. Thank you all for being here, and Afreximbank staff. We appreciate you taking your time out to be with us. My name is Adeze Anyoku. It was my pleasure to moderate this session today. We hope to see you next year at the IET of 2021. And in the midst of this pandemic, I wish you all good health. Please be well and stay safe. Thank you so much and have a good afternoon. Bye-bye.